The static crackled through Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reaper Rodriguez's headset like dying embers. Somewhere in the mountains of northern Syria, 8 Navy SEALs were about to become ghosts. The kind that never make it home. The kind whose families get folded flags and empty promises. Bravo 6, this is Overwatch. Multiple hostiles converging on your position. We count at least 40 tangos with armor support moving up the valley. The voice from the operations center carried the weight of inevitability. Everyone listening knew what 40 meant when you only had 8. Rodriguez pressed his face against the cool metal of the AC-130's window, watching the infrared signatures bloom like deadly flowers across his screen. The SEALs were boxed in, a rocky outcrop on 3 sides, a sheer cliff on the 4th. Classic kill box, textbook ambush. Someone had sold them out, and now they were paying the price in blood that hadn't been spilled yet. Overwatch Bravo 6 Actual. The voice of Chief Petty Officer Jake "Hammer" Morrison cut through the static, steady as bedrock despite the circumstances. We've got good defilade for now, but they're bringing up something heavy. Looks like a T-72 tank, maybe 2. We need immediate air support or we're about to become a bad day at Arlington. The silence that followed stretched like a funeral shroud. Every pilot in the area was either grounded for maintenance, committed to other missions, or simply too far away. The closest A-10 was 90 minutes out, roughly 89 minutes too late. The Apache squadron was refueling in Jordan. The Marines' Harriers were weathered in at Incirlik. Rodriguez felt his jaw clench as he ran through the tactical display again. 8 of America's finest, trapped in a box canyon like cattle waiting for slaughter. The irony wasn't lost on him. All that technology, all that firepower, and they couldn't get a single bird in the air when it mattered most. That's when his radar operator, Staff Sergeant Chen, looked up from his scope with confusion painted across his features. "Sir, I've got something weird here. Single aircraft moving fast, no transponder, no flight plan, no radio contact. Coming in from the west at Angels 25. Rodriguez leaned over the console. On the screen, a lone contact streaked across the night sky like a digital comet. No identification, no communication, no registration with any known air tasking order. "What kind of aircraft?" Rodriguez asked, though something cold was already crawling up his spine. Chen's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sir, the signature looks like an F-22 Raptor, but according to this, that contact doesn't exist." The radio crackled again, and this time a new voice cut through the static. Female, calm, deadly as winter morning. "Bravo 6, this is Ghost Rider. I see your predicament. Sit tight, gentlemen. Help is on the way." The mountains below held their breath. Morrison's voice came back immediately, sharp with desperation and hope. "Ghost Rider, Bravo 6 Actual. We need immediate close air support on multiple armored vehicles approaching from the northeast. Can you provide?" Static, then that voice again, cool as mountain water. "Bravo 6, Ghost Rider is hot. Send your targets." In the operations center 300 miles away, Colonel Patricia, Ice Queen Manning, stared at her tactical display with growing unease. No F-22 was supposed to be in that airspace. Hell, no F-22 was supposed to be anywhere near Syria without her knowledge. She'd been running air operations in this sector for 18 months, and nothing, absolutely nothing, happened in her sky without her signature on the paperwork. She grabbed her secure phone and dialed the Pentagon. "This is Colonel Manning, 432nd Operations Group. I need to know if we have any Raptors airborne in Sector 77 Alpha." She waited, drumming her fingers against the metal desk. The response made her blood run cold. "Negative, Colonel. All F-22s are accounted for. Elmendorf has 4 on routine patrol over Alaska, Langley has 6 down for maintenance, and Tyndall's entire squadron is grounded due to weather. Are you sure about your contact?" Manning stared at the screen where the mysterious aircraft was now descending like a hunting falcon toward the trapped SEALs. Jesus Christ, she whispered. Then who the hell is Ghost Rider? Meanwhile, 8,000 feet above the Syrian mountains, Captain Valentina Ghost Kozlova adjusted her grip on the F-22 stick and felt the familiar weight of destiny settling across her shoulders. The aircraft responded to her touch like a lover's whisper, every control surface an extension of her will. She'd been flying for 12 years, first in the Russian Air Force before defecting, then through a classified Pentagon program that officially didn't exist. The SEALs below were about to die, and she was the only thing standing between them and eternity. Bravo 6, Ghost Rider. I have eyes on 5 armored vehicles approaching your position. Infantry support approximately 40 personnel. Weapons free. Morrison's response was immediate. Ghost Rider, weapons are free. Repeat, weapons are free. Danger close on all sides. Kozlova felt her lips curl into a predator's smile. The F-22's internal weapons bay doors whispered open, revealing 2 AIM-120 AMRAAMs and 4 precision-guided munitions that could thread a needle at 20 miles. But this was going to be personal, close, intimate. She selected her 20 cannon and rolled inverted, diving toward the enemy formation like a mechanical angel of death. The targeting computer painted solutions across her heads-up display, but she didn't need them. She could feel where each target was, sense their movement through the mountain air. It was a gift that had kept her alive through 2 wars and a dozen classified operations. The first tank never saw her coming. The explosion lit up the valley like daybreak, a flower of orange and red blooming against the rocks. Metal fragments rained down like deadly confetti as the T-72's ammunition cooked off in a secondary blast that shook the mountains themselves. "Holy shit," Morrison's voice crackled through the radio. "Ghost Rider, that was a direct hit on the lead tank. How did you—" His transmission cut off as another explosion echoed through the canyon. Kozlova had already banked hard right, pulling 7 GS as she lined up on the second armored vehicle. The F-22's twin Pratt and Whitney engines screamed their defiance at the night sky, pushing her through a high-G turn that would have killed a lesser pilot. But she wasn't lesser. She was Ghost Rider, and ghosts didn't feel pain. The second tank tried to traverse its gun toward the sound of her engines, but it might as well have been trying to swat a lightning bolt. She put 2 precision rounds through its turret ring, and another monster died in fire and smoke. "Ghost Rider, Bravo 6, Morrison's voice carried a note of awe now. "That's 2 confirmed kills on armor. Infantry is scattering, but they're still in the fight." Kozlova pulled up hard, climbing back into the darkness above the valley. Below, muzzle flashes winked like deadly stars as the enemy infantry tried to regroup. 40 men with automatic weapons and rocket-propelled grenades spread across rough terrain, with 8 SEALs trapped in the middle. Time to get creative. In the operations center, Colonel Manning was having the strangest conversation of her military career. On one screen, she could see the battle unfolding in real time through drone footage. On another, her communications officer was frantically trying to raise the mystery F-22 on every frequency known to man. "Still no response to our hails, ma'am," Sergeant Davis reported. "Whoever that is, they're not talking to us." Manning nodded grimly. "Keep trying, and get me a direct line to CENTCOM. They need to know we have an unidentified fighter aircraft engaging enemy forces in our area of operations." But even as she spoke, she couldn't tear her eyes away from the tactical display. The mystery pilot was good, better than good. The way that F-22 moved through the air was like watching poetry written in missile smoke and cannon fire. She'd seen plenty of combat pilots in her 22-year career, but this was something else entirely. "Ma'am," Davis's voice interrupted her thoughts. "The SEALs are requesting immediate extraction. Ghost Rider has neutralized most of the threats, but there are still hostiles in the area." Manning grabbed her headset. "Bravo 6, this is Overwatch Actual. Extraction birds are inbound, ETA 15 minutes. Can you hold? Morrison's reply was tight with exhaustion and relief. Affirmative, Overwatch. Ghost Rider cleared our 6. We owe this pilot a beer. Hell, we owe this pilot our lives. Above them, Kozlova was finishing her deadly work. The remaining infantry had taken cover in the rocks, but thermal imaging revealed their positions like glowing beacons in the darkness. She selected her last 2 precision munitions and painted the largest concentration of enemy forces. Bravo 6, Ghost Rider. Final attack run inbound, keep your heads down. The missiles streaked downward like falling stars, their warheads designed for maximum anti-personnel effect against troops in the open. The twin explosions sent shockwaves rippling through the valley, and when the smoke cleared, the enemy's will to fight had evaporated like morning mist. Silence fell over the mountains. The kind of profound quiet that comes after violent death has passed through like a harvesting angel. Ghost Rider Bravo 6 Actual. Morrison's voice carried exhaustion and profound gratitude. Threat neutralized. I don't know who you are, but you just saved 8 American lives. How can we thank you? For a long moment, only static answered. Then quietly, almost whispered, "No thanks necessary, Chief. Just doing my job. Ghost Rider is RTB. Return to base." But which base? Manning leaned forward in her chair, watching the F-22's signature begin to fade from her screens. "Davis, do we have a track on where Ghost Rider is headed?" The communications officer shook his head. "Contact is fading, ma'am. Looks like they're climbing to high altitude and gone, dropped off our scopes completely." Manning stared at the empty screen where moments before a guardian angel had appeared from nowhere to save 8 of America's finest warriors. In her 2 decades of military service, she'd seen classified programs, black projects, and operations that officially never happened. But this was different. This felt personal. "Davis, I want you to start a priority intelligence request. Call it Operation Ghost Hunt. I want to know everything, and I mean everything, about any F-22 pilot with the call sign Ghost Rider. Start with current active duty, then reserves, then anybody who's ever sat in the cockpit of a Raptor." As the extraction helicopters arrived to pull the SEALs out of their mountain hell, one question echoed through the operations center like a haunting melody. Who was Ghost Rider, and where had she come from? The answer, when it finally surfaced 3 days later through classified Pentagon channels, would shake the foundations of everything Colonel Manning thought she knew about loyalty, sacrifice, and the price of redemption. But that revelation was still 72 hours away, buried in files marked with classification levels that made grown intelligence officers whisper in dark corridors. Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez was having the worst day of her administrative career when the priority intelligence request landed on her desk like a digital grenade. As the chief records clerk for the 1st Fighter Wings Personnel Office, she'd seen plenty of unusual requests, but this one made her coffee grow cold as she read. Find everything on any F-22 pilot, active or inactive, with call sign Ghost Rider. The request carried Colonel Manning's signature and a classification level that made Vasquez's security clearance feel inadequate. She started with the easy searches first: active duty rosters, training records, deployment schedules. Nothing. Ghost Rider wasn't listed anywhere in the current pilot database. She expanded her search to reserves and National Guard units. Still nothing. It was when she accessed the archived personnel files that things got interesting. Captain Valentina Kozlova, United States Air Force, former Russian Air Force pilot, defected in 2019 through a classified program run by the Defense Intelligence Agency. Trained on F-22 systems at Nellis Air Force Base under Project Nightfall, a program so black it didn't officially exist. Call sign Ghost Rider. Status: killed in action, Afghanistan, March 15, 2021. Vasquez stared at her screen, reading and rereading the entry. According to official records, Ghost Rider had died 3 years ago when her F-22 was shot down during a classified mission over Taliban-controlled territory. No body had been recovered due to enemy activity in the area, but satellite imagery showed the crash site and wreckage. She reached for her secure phone with trembling fingers. Colonel Manning's office. "Ma'am, this is Staff Sergeant Vasquez in personnel. I found your Ghost Rider, but, ma'am, you're not going to believe this." 30 minutes later, Colonel Manning sat in her secure conference room, staring at a classified file that challenged everything she understood about life, death, and the murky world of black operations. Captain Valentina Ghost Kozlova had been born in Volgograd, Russia, in 1989. Graduated top of her class from the Gagarin Air Force Academy. Flew combat missions over Georgia in 2008, Syria in 2015, and Ukraine in 2019, before defecting to the United States with intelligence that prevented a major terrorist attack on American soil. The Pentagon had welcomed her with classified arms, fast-tracking her through citizenship and flight training on America's most advanced fighter aircraft. She'd proven herself in combat over Afghanistan and Iraq, earning the respect of pilots who initially viewed her with suspicion. Then came the mission that killed her. March 15, 2021. Intelligence had located a high-value target in the mountains near the Pakistan border, a Taliban commander who was planning attacks against American installations. Kozlova had volunteered for the solo reconnaissance mission, despite knowing the area was heavily defended. Her F-22 was hit by a surface-to-air missile at 3:47 hours. The last transmission from Ghost Rider was calm, professional, and heartbreaking. "Mayday, Mayday. Ghost Rider is going down. Tell my wingman he still owes me $20. No body was ever recovered from the crash site. Manning closed the file and rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building behind her eyes. According to every official record, Ghost Rider was dead, had been dead for 3 years, but she'd personally watched surveillance footage of an F-22 with that exact call sign saving 8 Navy SEALs in Syria just 48 hours ago. She picked up her secure phone and dialed a number she'd hoped never to use. Defense Intelligence Agency, Special Projects Division. "This is Colonel Manning, 432nd Operations Group. I need to speak with someone about Project Nightfall." The pause on the other end stretched like a held breath. "Ma'am, I have no record of any project by that name." "Then let me be more specific. I need to talk to someone about a pilot who's supposed to be dead but apparently isn't." Another pause, longer this time. "Please hold, Colonel." The voice that eventually came on the line was crisp, professional, and completely devoid of warmth. "Colonel Manning, this is Director Sarah Walsh, DIA Special Activities. I understand you have questions about one of our former assets." "Former assets? Ma'am, I just watched footage of Ghost Rider engaging enemy forces in Syria. According to my records, that pilot died 3 years ago." Walsh's sigh carried the weight of secrets that could destabilize governments. "Colonel, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. Project Nightfall was terminated after Captain Kozlova's apparent death in Afghanistan. However, recent intelligence suggests that she may have survived the crash and has been operating independently in the region." Manning felt her world tilt slightly off its axis. "Operating independently? You mean she's gone rogue?" "Not rogue, Colonel. Something more complicated than that. We believe Captain Kozlova has been conducting unauthorized operations against terrorist cells and enemy forces throughout the Middle East. She's essentially become a one-woman air force, striking targets of opportunity with no official backing or support." The implications hit Manning like a physical blow. A highly trained F-22 pilot, officially dead, operating completely off the books in one of the world's most volatile regions. "Ma'am, Where is she getting fuel, maintenance, ordnance? You can't operate an F-22 out of a cave. That's what we're trying to figure out, Colonel. We have reason to believe she may have assistance from certain allied intelligence services who prefer to remain unnamed. Services that sometimes find it useful to have a pilot who doesn't officially exist. Manning thought about the precision of those strikes, the professional calm in Ghost Rider's voice, the way she'd appeared exactly when needed most. "Ma'am, what do you want me to do if she shows up in my airspace again?" Walsh's response was immediate and non-negotiable. "Nothing, Colonel. You don't see her, you don't track her, you don't report her. As far as your records are concerned, Ghost Rider died in Afghanistan 3 years ago. Are we clear?" "Crystal, ma'am." But as Manning hung up the phone, she knew that some questions couldn't be buried in classified files. Somewhere in the mountains and deserts of the Middle East, a ghost was flying again, carrying out a personal war that existed in the shadows between official policy and absolute justice. And 8 Navy SEALs were alive because of it. 2 weeks after the Syria incident, Chief Petty Officer Jake Morrison was nursing a beer in a dive bar outside Coronado, trying to process what he'd experienced in those mountains. His team had debriefed with intelligence officers, psychologists, and tactical analysts, but none of them could explain what had really happened up there. "You ever think about that pilot?" Petty Officer Second Class Tommy "Spike" Rodriguez asked, sliding into the booth across from Morrison. "Ghost Rider." Morrison took a long pull from his bottle, staring at the amber liquid like it might contain answers. "Every damn day, Spike. That woman appeared out of nowhere and saved our asses. No backup, no support, just her and that raptor against half the Syrian army." "Tommy thinks she's some kind of angel," Petty Officer First Class Marcus Doc Williams said, joining them with his own drink. "Says God sent her to watch over us." Morrison shook his head. "Angels don't fly F-22s, Doc. That was a flesh-and-blood pilot up there. Best I've ever seen, and I've worked with some serious stick-and-rudder men over the years." "Woman," Rodriguez corrected quietly. That voice was definitely female. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, each man dealing with the psychological aftermath of surviving what should have been a certain death sentence. In the SEAL community, you learned to accept that some missions would be your last, but you never got used to being saved by a ghost. Morrison's phone buzzed with an encrypted message. He read it twice before showing it to his teammates. The text was simple. "The pilot you met in Syria sends her regards. She hopes you're all safe. A friend." "How the hell?" Williams started, but Morrison held up a hand. "Don't ask questions you don't want answered, Doc. Some things are better left alone." But privately, Morrison couldn't let it go. He'd spent 3 hours trapped in those mountains, listening to Ghost Rider's voice guide precision strikes with surgical accuracy. There had been something in her tone, not just professional competence, but personal investment, like she was settling a score that went deeper than simple military duty. He pulled out his personal laptop and started searching through military databases, using contacts and favors accumulated over 15 years in special operations. What he found 3 days later made him wish he'd listened to his own advice about leaving some stones unturned. Captain Valentina Kozlova, born in Volgograd, Russia, defected to the United States in 2019 after providing intelligence that prevented a terrorist attack targeting American military families. The attack had been planned for Coronado, California, the home of Naval Special Warfare Command. Morrison stared at the screen, pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. Ghost Rider hadn't just saved 8 random SEALs in Syria. She'd saved 8 men from a base she'd helped protect 3 years earlier. The personal investment he'd heard in her voice wasn't professional duty, it was repaying a debt. According to the classified files, Morrison definitely wasn't supposed to be accessing. Kozlova's intelligence had identified a cell planning to detonate car bombs outside the elementary school, where many SEAL children attended classes. The attack had been scheduled for a Tuesday morning in September 2019. Morrison's daughter, Emma, had been in second grade at that school. He closed the laptop with shaking hands and reached for his beer, but the bottle suddenly felt too heavy. In some parallel universe, his little girl had died in fire and smoke because a Russian pilot had chosen loyalty to her homeland over protecting American children. Instead, that same Russian pilot had sacrificed everything, her country, her family, her identity, to save lives she'd never met. And 3 years later, when 8 American warriors needed a guardian angel, she'd appeared from the darkness to return the favor. Morrison pulled out his phone and composed a text message to a number he'd never used but somehow knew would reach the right person. "Thank you, for Emma and for all of us. The Chief." He sent it into the digital void and finished his beer in silence, wondering if ghosts could receive text messages, and if they did, whether they ever smiled. The message reached Kozlova's phone as she sat in a hidden bunker carved into the Lebanese mountains, performing maintenance on an F-22 that officially didn't exist. The facility was a relic of Cold War paranoia, built by the CIA in the 1960s and abandoned when geopolitical winds shifted. Now it served as home base for a war that existed only in the shadows. She read Morrison's text 3 times before setting the phone aside and returning to her work. The Raptor's left engine needed attention, and precision weapons didn't maintain themselves. But something warm flickered in her chest, an emotion she'd almost forgotten how to feel. Her maintenance crew consisted of exactly one person, herself. She'd learned to be mechanic, armorer, intelligence analyst, and mission planner through necessity and determination. The F-22 was her partner in this shadow war, and she treated it with the reverence of a samurai caring for his blade. The aircraft itself was a ghost story within a ghost story. Officially, F-22 serial number 44079 had been destroyed in a training accident at Nellis Air Force Base in 2020. In reality, it had been quietly transferred to Project Nightfall and given a new identity as anonymous as its pilot. When Kozlova had died in Afghanistan, certain sympathetic elements within Allied intelligence agencies had provided her with the resources to continue her personal mission. The Israelis wanted Syrian air defenses degraded. The Jordanians needed ISIS supply lines disrupted. The Americans required plausible deniability. Ghost Rider provided all three. She'd been operating for 3 years now, living like a hermit in hidden bases scattered across the Middle East, emerging only to strike targets that threatened innocent lives. No backup, no support. No one to rely on except herself and a fighter jet that responded to her touch like an extension of her soul. The loneliness was crushing some days. She hadn't spoken to another human being face to face in 6 months. Her only companions were the voices on encrypted radios, controllers who knew her only as a call sign, allies who used her services without asking questions. But then missions like Syria reminded her why she'd chosen this path. 8 American warriors had gone home to their families because she'd been there when death came calling. Morrison's daughter would grow up with a father who'd survived because a Russian defector had decided that some debts could only be repaid in blood. Kozlova finished her maintenance check and sealed the F-22's engine compartment. Tomorrow would bring another mission, another chance to balance the scales of justice in a world that seemed increasingly determined to tip toward chaos. She walked to the bunker's communications center and powered up her encrypted satellite link. Intelligence flowed across multiple screens: terrorist movements, weapons shipments, planned attacks against civilian targets. Her targets chose themselves. She simply provided the means of their destruction. A new report caught her attention. ISIS fighters had captured a village in northern Iraq, executing civilians and using the survivors as human shields. Iraqi forces were too far away to help, and American air assets were committed to other operations. Kozlova studied the tactical situation, calculating distances, fuel requirements, and weapons loads. It would be a difficult mission, high risk, minimal support, no backup if things went wrong. Exactly the kind of operation that Ghost Rider specialized in. She began her flight planning, knowing that in 12 hours, she would once again climb into the sky to visit judgment upon those who preyed on the innocent. In her heart, she carried the voices of every person she'd saved, every family she'd kept whole, every child who would grow up because she'd been willing to become a ghost. The sky was her sanctuary, and death was her profession. And somewhere in the darkness above the Middle East, a phantom F-22 prepared to fly once more. Captain Yusuf al-Rashid had been hunting the ghost for 2 years, ever since the mysterious fighter had destroyed his cousin's convoy outside Damascus. As Syria's most decorated pilot and commander of their elite air defense squadron, he took it personally when an unknown aircraft operated in his airspace with impunity. "Sir, we have multiple radar contacts," his weapons officer reported from the command bunker buried beneath 50 feet of reinforced concrete. "Unknown aircraft, single signature, approaching from the west at high altitude." Al-Rashid smiled grimly as he studied the tactical display. For months, he'd been setting traps, using decoy convoys and false intelligence reports to lure the ghost into predetermined kill zones. Today, his patience would finally be rewarded. "Vector our CAP flight to intercept. Tell them to expect an F-22 Raptor, pilot unknown, operating without transponder. This is the aircraft that's been causing us so much trouble." The 2 Syrian MiG-29s turned hard left, their pilots eager for a chance to down the phantom that had been embarrassing their air force for so long. But as they climbed toward the intercept point, their radars showed empty sky. "Control lead. We're at the coordinates, but I don't see anything. Are you sure about that contact?" Al-Rashid frowned at his scope. The contact had simply vanished, not faded, not moved out of range, but disappeared completely as if it had never existed. "Maintain patrol pattern. The ghost is out there somewhere." 20 miles to the east, Kozlova smiled inside her helmet as she watched the Syrian fighters search for a target that was invisible to their radar. The F-22's stealth capabilities weren't magic, but they were close enough. Her aircraft's radar cross-section was smaller than a Sparrow, practically undetectable to the aging Soviet-era systems the Syrians used. She'd been monitoring their communications for weeks, learning their patterns, studying their tactics. Al-Rashid was good, better than most of the pilots she'd faced, but he was fighting the last war, using conventional thinking against an adversary who existed outside all conventional frameworks. "Syrian fighters, this is Ghost Rider." She transmitted on their tactical frequency, her voice calm and professional. "You're looking for me." The response was immediate and furious. "Unknown aircraft, you are violating Syrian airspace. Identify yourself or be engaged." Kozlova checked her weapons display. 2 AIM-120 AMRAAMs ready for launch. The Syrian MiGs were well within range, but she wasn't here to start a war between nation-states. Her quarrel was with terrorists and war criminals, not professional soldiers following orders. "Syrian fighters, I have no quarrel with you. There are ISIS positions 3 kilometers south of your current location. They have American prisoners. I'm here to collect them." Al-Rashid's voice cut through the static, tight with anger and frustration. "Ghost, you will land immediately or be destroyed. This is sovereign Syrian airspace, and you are not authorized to operate here." "Captain Al-Rashid," Kozlova said, using his name deliberately to demonstrate the extent of her intelligence. "You've been hunting me for 2 years. Today you finally found me. But before you pull that trigger, ask yourself, who benefits from this engagement?" There was silence on the frequency as Al-Rashid processed her words. He was a professional soldier, not a fanatic, and he understood the larger strategic picture. The Ghost had been attacking ISIS and other terrorist groups, enemies of the Syrian government as well as the West. Ghost, you will withdraw from Syrian airspace immediately. Negative, Captain. There are American soldiers in that compound who will die if I leave. Their blood will be on both our hands. Al-Rashid stared at his tactical display, caught between duty to his country and the complex realities of a war that defied simple categorization. The Ghost had never attacked Syrian military forces, had never threatened government installations. Her targets were exclusively terrorists and extremists. But she was also an unauthorized foreign aircraft operating in violation of Syrian sovereignty, flown by a pilot of unknown nationality and agenda. "Sir," his weapons officer prompted, "do we engage?" Al-Rashid hesitated, knowing that his next words would determine whether two professional pilots would die today over principles that mattered less than the lives hanging in the balance. "Ghost Rider, you have 10 minutes to complete your mission and withdraw. After that, we will consider you a hostile target." Kozlova's relief was audible in her voice. "Thank you, Captain. 10 minutes." She rolled inverted and dove toward the ISIS compound, her F-22 becoming a guided missile aimed at the heart of evil. Below, American Special Forces soldiers waited in cages, while their captors prepared cameras for another propaganda execution. The Ghost had arrived to collect a debt that transcended national boundaries. The compound exploded in a series of precise strikes that seemed to come from the sky itself. Kozlova placed her bombs with surgical accuracy, destroying guard towers and weapons emplacements while leaving the prison building intact. Secondary explosions rippled through ammunition dumps and vehicle parks as the ISIS fighters scrambled for cover that no longer existed. On her third pass, she switched to her 20 cannon and began hunting individual targets, men with rocket launchers who threatened the rescue helicopters, snipers in hidden positions, leaders trying to coordinate a defense that was already collapsing. The entire attack lasted exactly 7 minutes. As American helicopters swept in to extract the prisoners, Kozlova climbed back toward the stratosphere, her mission complete. Behind her, the ISIS compound burned like a funeral pyre for the ideology that had claimed so many innocent lives. "Ghost Rider, this is Rescue 1, came the voice of the helicopter pilot. 6 American personnel recovered, all alive. We couldn't have done this without you. Rescue 1, Ghost Rider, just doing my job." As she turned west toward the Mediterranean and another hidden base, Al-Rashid's voice crackled through her headset one final time. "Ghost, this is Captain Al-Rashid. You kept your word. Next time you're in my airspace, call ahead, professional courtesy." Kozlova smiled inside her helmet. "Understood, Captain, professional courtesy." She climbed into the darkness above the Middle East, carrying with her the knowledge that 6 American soldiers would see their families again, and that somewhere below, a Syrian pilot understood that some wars transcended the boundaries drawn on maps by politicians who had never smelled cordite or held a dying friend in their arms. The Ghost flew on, her ledger balanced for another day. The debriefing room at Ramstein Air Base in Germany felt like a confessional booth as Colonel Manning sat across from the 6 rescued American soldiers. Each man had a story about their captivity, but they all mentioned the same mysterious detail: the sound of F-22 engines seconds before their prison dissolved in precisely targeted explosions. "The ISIS fighters were preparing to execute us on video," Staff Sergeant David Chen explained, his voice still hoarse from weeks of captivity. "They had the cameras set up, the whole propaganda set up. Then the world exploded around them, but somehow our building never got hit. It was like someone was painting targets with surgical precision." Manning nodded, making notes she knew would disappear into classified files within hours. "Did you see the aircraft that provided close air support?" "No, ma'am, but we heard it. Distinctive engine sound. You don't mistake an F-22 for anything else. The pilot never came on our frequency, never identified herself, but she saved our lives. Herself? Chen looked uncomfortable. Yes, ma'am. The rescue helicopter crew mentioned hearing a female voice on the tactical net. Call sign Ghost Rider. Manning felt that familiar chill running down her spine. Ghost Rider was becoming a legend in the shadows of the Middle East, a phantom protector, whose interventions were saving American lives across the region. The intelligence community was split between those who wanted to bring her in and those who preferred to let her continue operating independently. She was becoming too visible, too well known, and that meant she was becoming a target. After dismissing the rescued soldiers, Manning returned to her office and placed a secure call to Langley. This is Colonel Manning. I need to speak with someone about operational security for an asset that's attracting too much attention. The voice that answered was tired, carrying the weight of secrets that never saw daylight. Colonel, we're aware of your concerns. Steps are being taken to address the situation. What kind of steps? The kind we don't discuss over phone lines, even secure ones. Suffice it to say that Ghost Rider has attracted notice from parties other than grateful American soldiers. There are bounties on her head, posted by organizations that don't appreciate her interference in their operations. Manning felt her stomach drop. How much? Enough to make professional assassins very interested. The good news is that she's proven remarkably difficult to locate when she doesn't want to be found. The bad news is that she seems constitutionally incapable of ignoring distress calls from American personnel. It was a hunter's dilemma as old as warfare itself. Use the target's compassion as bait to draw them into a trap. Manning cowled.